Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Tampa Bay Real Producers Podcast. This, of course, is the podcast that is made for real producers, by real producers, and with none other than Tampa Bay's real producers, such as our guest today, which is Mr. Mark Middleton. How are you, Mark?
I'm great, Don, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be here with you. Thanks.
Hey, man, it's our pleasure. It really is. I've known Mark now for years. If you've been following what we do with real producers, you've probably seen him featured before in Tampa Bay Real Producers. Mark was just featured as our broker spotlight, actually, in the December 2023 issue. It's just a couple of months ago. And then I know we've featured you before as well for a different, I think it was a Making a Difference, like charitable organization that you were affiliated with. We'll talk about that, I think, a little bit more as well. Mark is involved in a lot of different things. So there's a lot to dive into with Mark, and we're going to start doing that. We'll do our best in the time we have. But why don't we start with just a little bit of your background for people who might not know you that well. Did you grow up in this area? If not, what brought you to Tampa area, and how eventually did you get yourself excited about real estate?
Great. Yeah. Well, hey, thanks. I didn't grow up in this area. So born in Detroit, and by the time I was 14 years old, back in 1984, mom and dad got sick of living in the snow and the cold in the wintertime, and we were just,
me and
my brother were told, hey, we're moving to Florida. So we had taken a trip down a few weeks before. And my parents had a motorhome. We brought the motorhome down, and they scoped out kind of the area that they wanted to live in. And literally a month later, we were on our way in a moving truck.
Nice. Is that right? Tampa Bay area?
Yeah, we moved over to the town and country area, and eventually went to Leto High School, graduated from Leto High School there, and graduated from USF. So I've been local since 1984.
Cool. What'd you go to school for at USF?
Graduated with a degree in history. And that was informed all the way from the time that I was a 14-year-old kid. I mean, my first job was in the restaurant business. I worked at the Carrollwood Golf and Country Club.
Nice.
And I was the little kid in the corner that was folding napkins into little shapes for the table and filling up everyone's water glasses. and when I was sitting at that table folding napkins, all the college and high school kids would talk about the classes that they were taking and everything. And I was so enamored by these history classes that they were taking that I really got drawn into that, and I majored in that in college. And I figured that if I didn't do that, if I was going to try to get a degree in like biology or something like that, because I love marine biology, but I was just never going to make it in college if I didn't study something that I was just really passionate about.
Yeah, so I'm a big history fan myself, so I never went down that road of majoring in history, but I love reading the books, and I love learning from history as much as possible. Would you think you were going to be a teacher?
I guess I did. I didn't really, I
didn't think that through, huh?
I didn't think that one through. I didn't have a 10-point plan for that. I knew that I always could, but I had stayed in the restaurant business. I ended up being 27 years, but standing behind a bar running restaurants.
Yep.
And I thought multiple times over that long career in the restaurant industry that, hey, I'm going to just go teach, but I would have made 30% of my salary that I was bringing home.
Unfortunately, those teachers don't get paid the chatter that they
get paid what they should, for sure.
Yeah.
And the other thing I would have lost was my freedom. And one of the things that I have been passionate about since I was a high school kid is my photography. And that being in that industry for so long, it afforded me a really unique opportunity to tell my boss, hey, I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks in Yosemite National Park photographing, and it was never a question. And I've only had a few jobs my entire adult life, and they said, hey, just let us know what day you're coming back. So I would go on these photography adventures all over the world.
Nice.
And it was
I remember talking to you about your passion for photography and your experience too, and those many years working at the bar, because I'm sure that the skill sets you developed by being like a professional bartender has helped you in real estate, I would imagine, in many ways.
It's funny because people ask me what I used to do before I got into this industry, and it happened again yesterday. I was in a mastermind with real producers, and a guy sitting next to me said, oh, no wonder you get along really well with everybody. And I'm like, it's funny because that keeps coming up over and over again.
Yeah.
I'm truly, and I shared this with you before, I'm truly an introvert. Like, I don't like going out and having to like network or talk to people. And I usually won't talk to people until I know them. And then you
Right.
can't shut me up. I'll tell you about everything you ever wanted to know, right? Or my opinion about things. But I'm really introverted. And by being in the restaurant business and standing behind a bar for so many years, even at a young age, I was forced to talk to people that I didn't know, and what was uncomfortable then just became natural for me. I still feel like I'm faking it sometimes.
We all do.
Yeah,
It's all good.
But
For those of you who don't know Mark, he is the owner of Silver Trident Realty, and he's also, as he just mentioned, a member of one of these elite agent masterminds that we put together with Tampa Bay Real Producers this year. Mark was one of 12 top professionals that we invited to be a part of that mastermind, and so far we've had 2 meetings with the mastermind group. We meet once a month, and I'm glad that you're a part of the group. I know yesterday we had shout out to Andrew Duncan, who gave a great presentation yesterday to help us become 7th level leaders that I'm sure we'll talk more about in the future. But man, it's been cool to kind of experience in some ways your growth in your career over the last few years and see how that's shaken out. But again, for people who might not have known the story, what eventually got you into real estate? Where did that start that you got licensed and said, this is going to be my new career?
It kept going with that bartending story. It's really funny because sometimes, you're connected with these people on social media, and then you look back and you're like, I don't even remember connecting with this person, or how am I friends with this person? But my ritual every morning, I would get out of work between midnight and 1 o'clock in the morning. So I'd wake up at the crack of 9 o'clock. And the first thing I would do is go to Facebook and look at Facebook and Instagram. And I used to use that platform to share a lot of my photography stuff. But one morning I open up Facebook and I see this lady, a very productive realtor who does a great job. Still know her. And she's holding up an award. And I did the math, and she had won number 1 in her Keller Williams office, and for gross sales volume that month. And I took my calculator and I did 2.5% times that gross volume, and she had made like $68,000 that month. So I have this great group of friends who I remain friends with today. And Tuesday night was always the night that we would get together, us men, and have our men's dinner together. And the first guy to show up that evening for dinner, other than me, was my friend Alan, older gentleman, wise, and he's had this really long, great career, and I respect him a lot. And I showed him the picture, and I go, look at how much money this lady made. And he said to me, if you go into real estate, you will be a multimillionaire. I know that this drive and your laser focus, the ability to do that, is going to make that happen for you. And I said to Alan that night, I go, okay, great. I'm going to go into real estate.
Nice.
So 2 years later, because
only took you 2 years.
It only took 2 years after. No, it didn't. No, the test wasn't the problem. The test was one of the easiest things for me,
sure,
because of that ability to laser focus. It was my ability. I had a problem. I was really comfortable. I made great money. It was all cash, and I was able to go and do whatever I wanted to do whenever I wanted to do it. And my shifts at the bar were never in question.
Right.
They would find somebody to cover for me, and then I would come back no matter how long I was gone, and that was my schedule.
Right.
And so probably because I was there for a long time, and probably because I was pretty good at what I did. And I got to a point, multiple things happened. That restaurant went out of business. I ended up going to another really fancy restaurant and bartending down there in South Tampa. And it wasn't what I thought that it was. I think the days of taking home $800 or $1,000 a night in cash, that wasn't reality. It was my reality, but it wasn't really what happened out in the real world.
Yeah.
So I had to go back to the people that had owned the restaurant. They had a different place, and asked her if I could come and work there. And it took a couple months working there, making half of what I used to make. So I was uncomfortable with that. And I think one night I looked left and I looked right, and both people working with me that night were old enough to be my children. And so I took another trip. I took a photography trip out, and it was the beginning of 2020 or 2017, and went out to Yosemite. It was one of the greatest photography trips that I had ever been on, because I had not shot Yosemite in the wintertime.
Nice.
And on the flight back, I decided, I'm done. I'm done with that life. I was 46 years old, and I'm going to pursue real estate. That night, I went online, signed up for Bob Hogue. 10 days later, I was already done with the Bob Hogue course. Took the test, passed it in 45 minutes, which, I was waiting for a hard question to happen, and I passed it on my first time. And then I called the lady from Facebook and said, okay, I passed my test. What do I do now?
Right.
And she kind of guided me, was really gracious and was really nice to me. And that is my journey
you join her
into
brokerage?
real estate. I did. I started at Keller Williams.
Yep.
Early 2017.
Yep.
Right before I started, I figured I better take a couple more photography trips. So I went down to Cuba and a couple of other places. And because I felt even then, I just knew that once I got into this, I am going to laser focus.
Yep.
Like, this isn't not going to work. At the time, lived in a nice house, drove a nice car, wanted to keep those things, and I didn't have a backup plan.
Yeah.
So I felt like I was, I've
were all
heard
in.
recently.
All the chips were in.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, I've heard recently
How
it's
long
called
did it
burning your
take
boats.
you to start to see results?
Quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. We live in this 30, 60, 90 business, right? This industry, which I could have never explained at that time what that meant. But I knew that I needed to sell houses and just decided to attack it. And so I didn't. Where do you start? Because I was brand new. So
Yeah.
I went to every class that Keller Williams had every single day, wandering around. And Gary Ubaldini owned that. Him and Nikki owned the Ubaldini group at Keller Williams. He was teaching a class one day, and he said, "Hey, when I first got into real estate, this is a story he shared. For 6 months, I was taking all these classes." And he goes, somebody kicked me out of the office one day and said, go get a listing because you're never going to make any money if you don't get a listing. And he said, I knocked on a for sale by owner's door that day, got the listing on that day. And he goes, I learned more in the first day that I had learned in the entire 6 months that I had been sitting in all these classes. So I'm like, I'm going to take his advice because he's become successful. And I went out, and within that first week, I got my first listing. Within 90 days, I think in my third month, I had made $56,000 in 1 month.
Nice.
And I knew at that point that, okay, what am I doing here?
Was it just knocking doors? Is that how you got things rolling initially?
Okay, so I have an interesting story with that. I just got done telling you that I was a bartender. I leveraged MySpace when MySpace first came out.
MySpace.
And it sounds funny, but we would have parties and events at the bar.
Was MySpace still around in 2017?
It was not. When MySpace went away, Facebook was the next thing. And I think I was one of the very first people to sign up from Facebook, right? Another bartender I worked with was really into computers, had said it, hey, this is going to be the next thing. So I, like that day, okay, I want to be part of the next thing. And was really an early adopter of that and was using it to tell people what I would be doing, each night at the bar, what my shifts were, come by and see me, and my income became dependent, on I could make my own income happen. What I didn't realize was I had spent years building a network.
Sure.
I was networking without even trying to network. I had no idea who I knew. When I got into real estate, I put a Facebook post out, hey, now I'm not your bartender anymore. Now I'm your realtor. And it just happened.
That's awesome.
And yes, you can probably...
The power of your spirit, man. You never really know how big and how powerful it can be.
It really, and it continues to this day to be one of the greatest blessings that I have is the people that I truly do know. I mean, I'm connected to some people that I don't know and I've never met on Instagram and Facebook, but so many people. I really do have relationships with them, even if it's only saying hello and how are you a few times a year.
Right.
And that's a great thing. But at the same time, most of us, it's true because I have this team of realtors, we can sell a few houses to our sphere. And I wanted to do big things.
Sure.
And so I did door knock too. I mean, I tell the people that I work with all the time, hey, those first 6 months or a year, I think I had calluses on my knuckles from banging on doors. And I was better at the in-person, probably because of my bartending ability, than I would have ever been
and
by
all those
talking on the
introvert
phone.
skills that you have,
Those introvert skills really pay off, right? Oh, I learned how to have the ability
Were you
to get out
targeting
of
a
myself.
Specific community, Mark? Was that a big focus for yours? Like, did you understand the concept of farming and you knew what area you really wanted to focus in and that's where you would door knock?
I did, and I didn't. I know and I still have this principle today that we're licensed in the state of Florida, and yes, you need to have geographical expertise in that area, and but I'm selling houses in the state of Florida. That's always been my vision. The other thing though is I still live in Dunedin, and so that was my area, and I felt like I was running for politics. I was knocking on every door, shaking hands, kissing babies,
That's
and
awesome.
just really talking to people there. But I think what you focus on expands
Sure.
is a principle in my life. And when I was out every day engaging with people and talking with people, it just blew up.
Yeah.
It really did. And I started a team within 90 days of my becoming
is
a
that
realtor.
fast? I was going to ask you about that next.
3 months.
So
Yeah.
I know because I've always, ever since I've known you, you've been running a team.
Yep.
And have always been kind of, I think, known as a successful team builder.
Yeah.
In this market. Was that the goal right away? It sounds like you did it pretty quickly. Like when you first got licensed, was that the objective? I know what I want. I know I want to grow a team. So I got to learn some of the basics of getting some deals, but I'm going to start growing as soon as I can. Or was that not on your radar?
Well, I think being naive is really a superpower of mine. I didn't understand how hard it was, or I didn't have anybody ever telling me that I couldn't ever in my whole life. Even when I was a little kid,
Yeah.
my father would tell me, "Hey, you're the greatest there ever is, and you can do anything you set your mind to." And that really informed my whole adult life, even to this day still, is really important. And I would sit in those Keller Williams classrooms that I was just talking about, and they have this in the Tampa Keller Williams on Linebaugh. They have a 30-foot wide sign that says "Think Bigger." And I was thinking to myself, well, I've just spent 27 years standing behind a bar, and I know that I wasn't hitting my full potential. And probably a problem of mine, when I was being really honest with myself, is that I never really gave myself credit to, hey, you can do anything you want to do. And so now I have the second opportunity to do something, and I need to start thinking bigger. The other thing that happened was I read the MREA, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And
We've had that book come up a lot on this podcast.
oh gosh, it's the Bible. It's the of real estate, of how to do this.
Yeah.
And and here's what my team leader at Keller Williams told me. You want to learn how to do this? Read this book because it's an instruction manual.
Yeah.
And so although that book was written over 20 years ago, here was my takeaway from that conversation with her that
I think
day.
it's still relevant today?
I do. 100% I do. And it's the foundation for whatever you want to do. And if somebody is going to hand me, Mark, a book and say, okay, you can make $1 million a year and all you have to do is follow these instructions, well, then it's my responsibility to read it, and if I don't, I'm dumb,
Yeah.
right? Like that's how I
Totally.
looked at myself. So those two things happened at the same time. I read this book, it's telling me begin with the end in mind, and then it's saying seventh level is the end, right? So how am I going to begin there? You can't, unless you're independently wealthy, you can't start your business by taking yourself out of the business.
Right.
But what you can do is find out how far down that chain of events, what's a realistic place that I can start if I'm beginning with the end in mind. And for me, thinking bigger and beginning with the end in mind, I'm going to start a team now. At the same time that happened, I used to live and own properties in Hernando County, and I kept getting listings in Hernando County. I didn't want to drive back and forth. It was an hour and 15 minutes
Yeah.
each way to Spring Hill from where I lived in Dunedin. And I think what you focus on expands. A lender that worked in my KW office said, hey, I see you listing all these properties in Spring Hill. There's a lady that I know, you should have a conversation with her. And we started having a talk, and I'm like, look, I got these listings. I would love to work with you. She was agent number 1 with me, Christina Botto. Awesome lady. Started with me, and still today, she works with me now. She's the president
Nice.
of Hernando County Realtor Association up there.
Nice.
And my first 2 people, Christina and Karen, 7 years later, they're still with me today.
That's awesome.
So I feel great about that because I
Yeah.
love the people that I'm close
Did
with.
most of your team building happen through like the KW office and different agent connections through that? Or was it people through your network, through the bar and through social media? Where did most of your recruiting efforts come from?
It was easy when I was at KW. And I felt like if I need to get a new team member, here's what I'm going to do. And I did this little trick a couple of times. I would do lead gen from our big training room that they had there on the second floor. And I would walk in and just start making cold calls. But I don't like to hold the phone up to my ear. I do
You're on
everything
speaker,
on
everybody hears
speakerphone.
you.
Everybody hears everything I'm doing, and it drives the people that are around me all the time. It drives them crazy. But I just don't like having that phone
Right.
up to my ear. But
It's not good for your brain either, the radiation.
yeah,
I mean,
I
come on
think
now.
in this Wi-Fi signal hitting my
That's
brain,
right,
yeah, it's
man.
going to give me cancer. But no, but here's the thing. I would go have these conversations, and I would only have to make 3 or 4 phone calls, and then I would get a listing appointment, and people would walk up to me in that room and be like, hey, can you teach me how to do this? I'd like to talk with you about being on your team.
Yeah.
It taught me how to recruit people to my team. That's an area that I need to grow for sure. I have a lot of areas that I can grow and develop in. But that was where it started. And then I think just reputationally and who you meet come into your world. One of the gentlemen heard me on an EXP Icon University recording that was out there in the world, and he cold called me and said, hey, I heard you on this and you're a person that I want to have a conversation with. Can I come and talk with you?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of that recruiting has been organic. In the times that I've gone out and put I also think everything is going to work out for me, right? The universe is conspiring all the time to make all my stuff come true.
Yeah.
I have this feeling. And that's really, I feel like, boy, that doesn't really work out that well, because I'll put.
Well, I think that mindset, though, is really powerful towards helping someone be successful. Right?
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And my feeling, where I feel like, okay, well, that didn't work out the way that I thought it was. Like last year, I put a bunch of videos out. I'm like, okay, I need to do video content. So putting them all over Facebook and LinkedIn and all of this, and never got one single person to come and work with me. So I had to think, okay, well, and we talked about this before. Yeah. Some things work out instantly, and some things take months. And knowing when something isn't working and when to give up is a really important thing.
Yeah, we were talking off camera about the one of my favorite quotes, which is success comes from going from failure to failure without a loss of enthusiasm. Right? Yep. Mark threw that loss of enthusiasm party in because I had a brain fart and I forgot about it. But yeah. It's so true. And we were talking before about how many things we failed at, right? And still keep moving forward, right? Just keep trying new projects, new ways to do things better. And so with your experience, Mark, so I think one of the things that comes up when people are building teams is this balance of individual production versus supporting the team, right? And some people are like, a mix of both. Some people are like, don't do any individual production anymore, and they just focus on the team, and they create models and systems and, different support systems to help the team grow, right? Which, of course, benefits them as well. But what was your approach to that? Has that changed or evolved at all over the years? When you were first getting the team going with KW to now the fact that you own your own brokerage, Silver Trident, and how you run your kind of operation now. What's your stance on that? How do you take it?
It's always been tricky because I'm not an independently wealthy person, right? I grew up in a middle-class family. Nobody gave me millions of dollars to just go out and do whatever I wanted. Mm-hmm. So I have to, even still to this day, I'm bootstrapping my company. Mm-hmm. Completely debt-free. Everything we do is paid in cash, or it's paid in cash at the end of the month. And so I have to still sell real estate. But I also had to be able to pay for all of that as we build and grow. I've also want to support and encourage and to feed the agents that are working on that team, because I have 2 separate entities, right? I have the brokerage, and I have people that work in the brokerage and hang their license around the state of Florida that are not part of my team. And then I have that little 7-person team that's in Dunedin there too. And we serve
so the
primarily.
Mark Middleton team is focused in Dunedin, it's mostly.
Focused in Dunedin and primarily just in Pinellas County.
Okay.
And then Christina obviously is on my team as well, and she focuses on Citrus and Hernando counties where she lives and works still. And that's been something that has been challenging sometimes, because the MLSs are different and the mindset and the values of properties are different. But it was also really genius because now I've got somebody that has been doing this for 23 years helping me to grow in that area as well. So we're at the same time we're dual growing 2 different geographical areas in one team, and it's been great with that. So
how big is the brokerage? Do you have agents all over the state? within the
from
brokerage?
Naples up to Gainesville, and over, is kind of that line that runs straight down from, if you drew a line from Gainesville to Naples,
West side of the state.
The west side of the state.
Yep.
That's not where my vision is going,
right?
But that's where we are today.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And the brokerage, how many do you have different offices throughout these markets, or is it all kind of just supported through online?
It's all, well, this was the thing that I really wanted to do. My vision for my brokerage is to have that personal touch with people that you would have if you worked in a small independent brokerage, but have it statewide. So how do you do that? And I worked at Keller Williams, I worked at EXP, that traditional big box brokerage where you're connected with all the people that are right there in the office. And then I worked at EXP where it's a cloud-based brokerage, and you can call your broker, but I worked there for 3.5 years and I never met my broker in person. So there's a balance with that, and there are some really powerful and great things from both models, and my vision is to meld those together. How do you make all of that look like that? So we run out of a central office. Erica, the lady that runs our brokerage operations, lives in Dunedin, 3 minutes down the street from where our office is, and yet the phone and Zoom and things like that are really have been really great tools and ways to connect with people.
How many agents do you have as part of the brokerage?
18.
Statewide, 18
right now.
Today.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's the vision look like for where you see that growing in 2024 and beyond? What's that look like?
It's going to take, well, what I always think, the universe, just told you, is conspiring to help me get everything I want, but also it's going to be on the universe's time, not on Mark's time. So it is taking way longer than I thought. There are parts of this industry that are difficult and they're hard to navigate, especially when you're learning and growing all on your own.
Totally.
I've had real estate coaches helping me, and I've been blessed to be in close proximity to some people that are way smarter and have been doing this a lot longer than I've been. So those things help me, but it's still going to take longer than I think. I once thought that I'm going to be completely statewide within 2 years. That's probably a 10 or 12 year vision, but that's where my vision is headed. We're licensed in the state of Florida. I love what I do. I love selling real estate and helping people, whether they're a buyer or seller.
Yep.
And I want to continue to do that and help. The way that I'm going to do that is by helping the agents that work with us and empowering them to help other people. And some of that's going to be organic. Some of that I have a strategic plan to help me grow. It's going to take some time, but I want to be statewide. Whether you're in Key West, Pensacola, or Jacksonville, a Silver Trident agent will be able to help you.
How long were you licensed before you started your own brokerage?
So 5 years.
Okay. Which is kind of quick, because some people do it. I guess some people do it even faster than that, but other people might never do it, right?
Right.
But I guess where I'm going with this is, what went into your thought process? And I think this is fascinating for people who might even be debating something similar from a path standpoint. What went into your thought process between just going off on your own, building your own brand, your own brokerage, how that aligned with your vision and why you wanted to pursue that? Some people would look at it and say, he's only been licensed for 5 years. There's still a lot that as you already have admitted, that you're still learning, right? About the real estate business. That'll never stop, right? Versus sticking with a KW. We've interviewed people on this show that have been with one brokerage 20 years, right? 25 years. An EXP in your case, or whatever it might be. Were you just trying to learn what you could from different brokerages, always knowing that you were going to eventually start your own, and that's been the vision since the get-go? Or what went into your thought process with that?
My vision, I think when I saw Jeff Borum yesterday, he reminded me, 2 weeks into my real estate career, I had said I'm going to sell $1 billion a year in real estate.
Nice.
It didn't mean me personally.
Sure, your organization.
My organization. Yeah. I'm going to facilitate that. And so that was from the beginning. And I don't know really what informed that. I know that I'm going to eventually get there.
Yeah.
And so that was strategic from day one. I knew that I wasn't going to stay with Keller Williams for the next 25 years. When I left there and went to eXp Realty, I did that with intention too, because I knew that I wanted to be a broker. I had already worked at the largest real estate firm on the planet. I wanted to see what another one that was born from EXP, or what EXP was born from Keller Williams. I wanted to see what a cloud-based brokerage would look like and how that all worked. And I did great at both, right? I grew exponentially at both brokerages, knowing that this is my eventual goal.
Which makes sense, I guess, based on what you said earlier, which was that your vision is a brokerage that has a cloud-based element to it, right?
Right. Yeah. And if you never work in one, how are you supposed to be able to know where all the nuts and bolts go if you've never worked on that before?
Right.
So that was why I moved when I did and how I did. And then when I decided, I had some struggles in my communication with my broker at EXP, and just decided, what, we're moving to our own brokerage, like the time is now. And kind of like it took 2 years from the time that I decided to get into real estate, I had a 1-year runway. That I knew, okay, this is, and Erica worked with me at the time. She's our operations manager, and I said, okay, this is where we're going, and we're going here at the end of this year. Let's build it, and we got our web domain. We hired lawyers. We put a social media plan together. We knew what our back office had to look like. And so we had a really good long time. So when I called the 2 brokers at EXP and said, hey, I just want to let you know, I want to give you the courtesy of you knowing that I'm leaving the company. We were ready to go. The only thing I had left to do is get approval from DBPR for our name and everything, which happened. Yeah. So it was good. It was strategic. Yes, some people wait a long time. Some people are really quick. It can be daunting knowing that, hey, there are rules, there are laws. Yeah. They're going to change all the time. Contracts are going to change. All of that's going to happen. And yet we've done a high volume of production. I mean, we've sold hundreds of houses in the last 7 years. So I felt very emboldened, like I'm ready, because I have, the average agent might sell 2 or 8 houses a year. Right. We weren't doing that. We were selling over 100. So I learned a lot. And every single one of those transactions that I was involved in, I mean, you can have 100 transactions and have 100 different scenarios. Totally. So after you've done that for a few years, I felt very confident in what I was doing, and I felt confident that, hey, I'm a smart guy. I can what I don't know, I'll figure out. And
I think you said earlier, tied to this initial vision of $1 billion business, whatever would have caused whatever was the genesis for that vision. You're not doing that as an individual agent, right? So that's a collective vision that requires, a team. And it just, in my opinion anyway, makes sense to build that vision around a brokerage brand that is going to be scalable, right? That you can grow to a level like that. In your experience so far, and again, I find this fascinating because I think there are people that probably listen to this who maybe are thinking similarly and might want to go off on their own and build their own brokerage and find out when's the time to do it. Is the timing ever right, to be able to do it. 2 things. What is one thing that you feel like you really had to put in place before you made that break and did it yourself so that you felt like that transition was fairly smooth? And then number 2, what's been one challenge? If you can point to one thing, I'm sure there's been more than one, but if you can point to one challenge that you feel like has been something you've had to face because you're off on your own as a broker and you've learned a lot from it or whatever, but that's just been part of what people should expect, right? If they want to go do that. So those 2 things, like, is there something that comes to mind that you felt like was really important for you to have in place before you decided to do that? And then number 2, what's been a challenge that's occurred since you've done it?
So my thing that I would have in place, and it continues to evolve, it's always going to evolve, is my people. In any business, our people that's our greatest strength. Is empowering them, helping them, and having the right people in the right seats on the bus. And that also is a challenge. But that was something that I've been really incredibly blessed with. I've had some amazing people that have joined our organization that have helped, and when we do well, we celebrate those wins. And when we fail, and there's failure all the time too, we all cry together. Yeah. And so that thing is this thing that you can't do this on your own.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't be the operations manager and the transaction
Totally.
coordinator and the agent and all of this stuff and ever even approach $1 billion.
Right.
It would be hard to get to $50 million if you're trying to do it all on your own. So the people is the thing that I think that we had in place, and I had some really great fortune there. The challenge, I think, is always the money. Unless somebody says to you, here's $1 million, go out and try to make it, make 100 million out of this. And you would be challenged even with that.
Sure.
But to pay for it, and to, one of my values in my life is to be financially responsible, be fiscally responsible, and to be debt free. And so that has been a challenge for me, because although I would love to get to a place where I hire a broker that's smarter and better than me and has got more experience than me at this, and put them in place, I can't do that right now. And I'm bootstrapping this. So as we make money, we invest back into our business at a clip of about 80% of everything we make goes getting poured back into what we're doing to accomplish that business. So
you have to kind of limit in some ways your lifestyle too to be able to do that, because you're not lavishly spending on personal things and lifestyle in order to know that you're allocating such a high percentage back into the business.
Yeah. I've been blessed with that. I've been able to buy some things that are nice and things that I enjoy and live in a nice home, and that's great. And at the same time, it doesn't mean that you can get on a jet and head to Paris this weekend just because you can. Because that money's going for something else.
Right.
And so there's a balance with all of this, but that has been the challenge of if I don't continue to produce, if I don't sell real estate, then I can't continue to grow my business.
Yeah.
And maybe someday we'll take out a loan or we'll have an investor join us or something. I don't know what that looks like today, but that's not where we've been for now. And to get to that point that I want to do $1 billion a year in volume and have one of the largest independent brokerages in the state of Florida, it's going to take a different Mark. I'm going to have to learn and grow and become somebody different than I am today and that I was 5 years ago. And I love looking in the rearview mirror and seeing who I was and who I'm becoming.
Yeah.
And I'm going to continue my commitment. I say this in front of my team all the time. I'm going to continue to pour into myself constantly so I can show up as the best version of myself to be able to help all of us. And it's one of my responsibilities. And so
that's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. I think you mentioned earlier KW's banner that says "Think Bigger," and I mean, to throw a number out like $1 billion as a business, that's a big number, right? That's big thinking to another level. And I love being around people personally who think big. Just makes you to think out of the box. And I think I'm a big believer that your results tend to be very similar to the people that surround you, and that whole Tony Robbins preaches proximity is power. And I really buy into that. And so I'm excited to hear you talk about such big numbers, knowing that, I love to be around people who have something they're excitingly going after, and wanting to build. And I think that's pretty cool to hear that. Are there other independent brokerages, Mark, that you're aware of within Florida that are at $1 billion?
Oh, there's plenty.
Okay. Is there one particular one or that you have as a mentor or somebody that you're working with to see that path?
I have some friends that have worked in those brokerages, and I had dinner with a broker a couple of weeks ago over in Orlando when we were at the Florida Realtors Midwinter Business Meetings that works at one of these brokerages. So there are people that I can bounce things off of. No one has ever pulled back the curtain and said, yeah, here's how you do this.
Right.
And their business models are going to look a little bit different than mine. What I'm building has to come from me.
Right.
And it's part of me. I mean, it really is. And I want to leave a legacy with that. And I don't have kids and a family. I don't even have a dog. So what I build and the legacy that I design, my future and the future of that company has to come internally from me.
By the way, another big thinker just walked in the room, Jason McIntosh.
There he is. Hey, brother.
J Mac, we are in his office, so we got to get out of here in like a minute because I'm already overdue time. But thank you. Good to see you. J Mac is part of also the Elite Agent Mastermind that we've been talking about, meeting every month, and we are in his studio. So we're going to have to put a bow on our conversation. But, man, I will have to have you back because I feel like there's a lot we could talk about that we get a chance to dive into.
Yeah.
And a couple quick things just for people who might not know you that well, even on the personal side. Is there a particular, you mentioned one earlier, the real estate, millionaire real estate agent, but is there a particular book or seminar or author that's meant a lot to you personally or professionally that you'd like to recommend?
Absolutely. I was going to bring this up in the mastermind yesterday. So I've read this book 3 or 4 times. It's called The Science of Getting Rich by William Wattles.
Yeah,
it's over 100 years old.
It's a great book.
It's over 100-year-old book. There are so many great nuggets there. And what you read, and I'm a voracious reader. I read at least a book a week, whether that is the hardcover copy or if it's on Audible, if I'm out running, riding my bike, or driving in the car, listening to podcasts and things like that. And what Keller Williams says this, what you focus on expands.
Yeah.
And so to always be learning and growing. But that one particular book, that's one out of the treasure chest for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. I've read it. I read it years ago, so I probably need to read it again just to remind myself of some of the great principles. But I remember reading the book. It is a great book for sure. A lot of truth there. Like you said, written so long ago, the wisdom just gets passed down, right?
Yeah.
From one generation to the next.
Yeah.
What is if you were to kind of identify, Mark, when you think about, and we might have talked about it with your brokerage goal and where that's going, but when you think about like what you'd want to be most remembered for when that time does come and you're sitting on that rocking chair and thinking about your legacy, right? Yeah. What do you think would matter most to you in terms of your legacy that you would want to be most remembered for?
Yeah, it's emotional. That's an emotional question because we've had a couple of Rotarians recently in our district that have passed away. And to think of those people and what the impact that they have had on our district, and I'm very involved in Rotary, and in our world has been amazing. And I think that's what I want to be remembered as. Before I'm a business person or an athlete or a photographer or anything, I want to be a good human being.
Yeah.
And I want to impact our world in the best way that I can. And one of the things that's important to me, I traveled all around the world, when I was in my photography adventures, and I literally have been over 60% of the planet, and I have seen where people don't have access to clean water. I have seen these people that have taken 5-gallon buckets down to a river or a stream and get water for the day, and that's what they brush their teeth with and drink from and cook with and bathe in. And so my big thing is helping every person on this entire planet have access to clean and safe water, and I want my legacy to be that Mark Middleton moved the needle, even if it's in a small way, to make the world a better place.
That's awesome, man. Well, you're doing some great things with a lot of the organizations that I know you're a part of, and we didn't get a chance to really dive into all of those different organizations because I know that there is a lot, but if you guys follow Mark online, and if somebody does want to connect with you, Mark, and maybe pick your brain about your decision from building your team to opening a brokerage to how you're scaling it to what you're doing to grow, to chase your dreams, what's the best way for someone to connect with you?
Man, I can be found everywhere. If you type in my name, Mark Middleton, Florida Realtor, in Google or any other browser, you're gonna find me, and I can be connected with on it. Probably the worst one that I'm at is LinkedIn. I just it's because there's hundreds of messages that come to me, so I can't get there.
I'm not as great either, but yes, with that.
Facebook and Instagram, or call me on the phone, and I would love to always have a conversation with anybody about anything, whether it's my photography and what I've done with that, or Rotary, or real
your
estate.
Running career. I mean, Mark, we didn't even talk about it, but Mark runs marathons, and he just finds ways to challenge himself, right?
Yeah.
We talked about thinking bigger a lot on this podcast today with this interview, and he does it in his business, but he also does it personally, and it's one of the things I respect about getting to know Mark over the years. And I think as people get to know him, that's one of the things they admire is the fact that you can't really hang out with Mark, at least my opinion is, and not feel like he's the type of person that'll make you a better version of yourself when you're in his presence. So that's what I get when I get to spend some time with you, and we appreciate you being here today for the podcast for sure. But yeah, man, check out his marathons and everything else that these guys going on. He's got a lot of stuff that he's doing to keep himself challenged and to help him grow, and I think it's all pretty impressive. We're gonna put a bow here on our episode for today. And we end every episode with a challenge. And so if you took the time to watch us live on Facebook or YouTube, or you're watching one of our episodes anywhere in any of the podcast platforms, what is one action step that you can take from this conversation with Mark that's going to help accelerate you forward in a personal or professional way? Maybe it's you've been kind of debating what your path looks like in real estate and opening a team, starting a brokerage. Mark would be a great person maybe to pick his brain a little bit and figure out how it worked for him and what that looked like. Or, maybe it's picking up one of the books that Mark recommended, from Science of Getting Rich to the millionaire real estate agent to any of the other tips that we discussed as well. Maybe you want to run a marathon, you got to pick his brain about that as well. So who knows? But Mark is a wealth of knowledge in a lot of different ways. So it would be probably worth, reaching out and having a conversation if something kind of triggered that today. But take a step, right? Maybe you just got to do a little bit of research to find out more, pass a test, get your broker's license, whatever it might be, to take a step in the right direction. And of course, if you don't already subscribe to our podcast, you can do that by just clicking the subscribe button so you're notified every time we have a new episode, and we drop new episodes every Friday with Tampa Bay Real Producers. We'll see you, of course, on the next episode. Stay classy, and we'll see you then.